wonder if I could get like some New Year's, like the New Year's theme music. We'll see. The answer will be the question will be answered while you're listening to this because it'll be on the front end of the show. This is DAR Sports Media. You are now tuned in. We got the world of wrestling is back for this week because we're going to do a little end of year look back, end of year awards, look back on some things. You know, we don't just do the one, you know, this is my wrestler review, this is my this of the year. We talk, you know, but we also do a lot of honorable mentions. And there's a lot of honorable mentions, especially some that got added, you know, last night as we record this AEW World's End that we're going to talk about. But in general, it's been, you know, I had a tough time looking back other than Drew and Punk in the Hell in a Cell. You know, WWE has been good, but not great pretty much the entire time. Like none of those shows were bad. Definitely none of them were bad. But I couldn't really find any that really stood out to me either. Punk Drew in the Cell. The series of matches that Braun Breaker had with Sami Zayn and with Jey Uso, phenomenal. But other than that, it was good. I've never regretted like tuning into a WWE PLE. Like it's all been fun times. But nothing that really knocked my socks off. And then of course you got on the other side, you got AEW when it's either fucking the Jameis Winston of fucking the Jameis Winston of wrestling promotions. You're either, you know, 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, or it's 5 pick sixes in one fucking game. It's you're either in the outhouse or the penthouse with them, man. And far too often lately, it's been the outhouse. But there was a lot of good stuff on last night. We'll get into that. General thoughts on the year in wrestling there, True?
You know, I think the year started off for WWE. I think it started off amazing, right? I mean, there's Roman Reigns, there's Cody Rhodes, there's
and I want to get into that too. We'll discuss that a little bit. Just how do you evaluate that match with Cody Rhodes against Roman Reigns and the way it was done? But go ahead.
So yeah,
I would put that on my match of the year too.
Yeah, I'll get to that too. I'll say the year for WWE started off really well because anytime you have a product that is heading into their biggest show of the year, typically the company tends to pull out all the stops. And it was different because WWE brought The Rock back, and we knew Rock was coming back, and he joined the board and the board of directors and all the stuff. And he's a key component now of the WWE in many ways. He's one of the decision makers. He's an important piece. So The Rock coming back and to take Cody's quote unquote spot, you would have never guessed that those 8 weeks would have played out the way that they played out. And I think the WrestleMania 40 build was so exciting because of the different character changes of The Rock and Rock becoming the final boss. And I think that was what made this such an exciting early period, was because of The Rock. And not saying he was the only piece of it, because I thought, Roman, Cody, and Seth being involved, they were good as well. But The Rock was just, we hadn't seen The Rock in that light in a very long time. We'd always seen him come back and do, he played the greatest hits. He would come out, do his people's elbow, tell somebody to shut up, and do his catchphrases, and that would be it. And so we got to see The Rock kind of dig into character work, which, I mean, since Hollywood Rock, we hadn't really seen that. And that to me was the highlight, because wrestling is to me, it's because it's all year round. It can be sometimes a mundane thing where it gets kind of monotonous, a little boring. And WWE, like you kind of mentioned, there's no show this year that was like great. There's not like a great, like, oh my, that's the most phenomenal show that I've watched ever. But they do just enough to make you go, man, that was good. I'll watch it next week. Yeah, that was good. I'll catch it next week. And they do just enough. Or like, oh, this pay-per-view is pretty good. Yeah, I want to see how they follow up this story tomorrow night on Raw, or, Friday on SmackDown. So they do just enough to get by. Whereas on the opposite side, of the spectrum. I think AEW has the exact opposite like issue. I think they have always been very, very, very great at making pay-per-views and putting on great matches. And I think that's what I enjoy AEW for, is their matches. Their stories, I don't think, outside of a Swerve and Hangman feud, Mariah May, Tony Storm, there's not a lot story-wise that I could gravitate to
But
this year.
that's a great example of what I was saying, though. Like, right? Like,
Yeah.
that Hangman Swerve feud was like fucking generational. It was like one of the best feuds we've had in the modern, since 2000, in the modern era. It was fucking amazing. But the rest of the show was just shit. One of their major angles, a promotion killer, was finally fucking. I pray to God it was finally fucking paid off last night. MJF and Adam Cole. I saw the same fucking usual suspects defending that. Like, well, he got injured, so you can't hold that against AEW. Like, the injury was in September and the reveal was in December. That's not enough time for you to fucking pivot, to figure something else out. 3 months isn't enough time. Me and True could sit here this afternoon and storyboard something that would fucking work to substitute in for Adam Cole, and you completely rat fucking this angle. It's a perfect example. Mariah May, Tony Storm as well. Phenomenal. One of the best feuds we've seen probably in the last decade. And then you got all this other fucking nonsense on the show. It's a perfect example of highs and lows with that place.
But you just brought up something that I think is interesting too, right? Swerve and Hangman had this amazing feud. Mariah May and Tony Storm had this amazing feud. The feud ends with Swerve losing to Hangman in a phenomenal matchup. And then Swerve has kind of just been
floated
there.
Yeah.
Hangman lost to Jay White twice, like right after the feud. And it was confusing because I guess it was done to elevate Jay White, which is great. But it was like Hangman just ended this feud by winning.
The hottest guy you got.
It just didn't make sense. Mariah May and Tony Storm.
It's crazy too how, and it just goes to show in wrestling, and I'm sure people who worked on it would claim this was the point at the time. But it's funny how, we've always talked about Hangman as this guy that you just didn't quite believe it, right? And I'm talking about as the mass audience. You just didn't quite buy it. And then they do this angle, they do this feud, and then it happens. And then he's like the made guy, and he's like their best guy now. And it's just crazy how it feels like it was. I don't know. It just didn't feel like that was. You just never know when it's going to happen, right? Yeah. And like, you put good work out and you put real passion into it, and like that'll be the thing that clicks on a larger level. Like, I think, obviously the intent was this great feud, this epic feud, but I don't know if it was meant to be the thing that finally took Hangman to the place that they've wanted him to be this whole time. I feel like that kind of happened just because it was so good and it was so believable and it was so intense. So that's, it's fucking awesome too.
I remember the conversation with AEW people behind the scenes before Swerve and Hangman had their feud. This was Triple H versus Mick Foley for them in terms of making Swerve into the Triple H. That was the writer's intent.
And then it ends up being Hangman's the fucking guy that comes out. Yeah, Swerve was already super over and was a bad motherfucker though, but Hangman's finally gotten to the place where they've wanted him to be this whole time.
And it's interesting because there's like, Hangman is finally settled into where you I think you always wanted him to be, even when he was champion a few years
even when
back.
He's champion, that's what I mean. Yeah.
It just it worked, but it didn't work on that level. And sometimes you got to go through things. You got to experience different things as a performer to fully tap into your highest high. And I guess that's where Hangman is for Swerve. I don't, Swerve thing is interesting to me. I don't think I would have had him just instantly get fed Bobby Lashley fresh off of a
who also was not on the pay-per-view last night.
Yeah. So that it's very uneven stuff with AEW, and despite what certain people in media scrums might try to do, you don't have to defend everything they do, because I think the problem is always going to exist, because, as was said on a media call before World's End, the person that heads up creative seems to be the one who makes all of the final decisions, and that person is a problem. And if we remember, as many people have said over the years in WWE, some of their biggest detriments was because everything had to be run through one person and confirmed through one person.
Yeah.
And I think, like, the Mariah May and Toni Storm thing was absolutely amazing, phenomenal piece of business. But Mariah May's title reign since has felt very flat, because it was like you built her up to be this and that, and then it's just like, that's it. Like, it's kind of like, that's it. And I think that is the biggest criticism I have of AEW, is that once they build something up to a high point, it's like they almost just don't know where to go next with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's over and over and over and over and over. And that's one of the primary things that can kill a promotion, because, like we've said, it gives you no reason to invest as a viewer.
None at all.
Because it's like, okay, cool, you can push this guy, and this could be great, and this could be this, and this could be that, but it ain't gonna matter ultimately.
And like I said, Mariah May is amazing. Toni Storm with her new amnesia gimmick, it's kind of funny. I think it is funny because
I think it's fucking fantastic.
Something so traumatic that it made her completely forget.
After the match in London, she just walked off. She just walked out of the arena off into the streets. Like, yes, that's exactly what it is.
And so it's interesting, because we know where this is headed. This is headed to, and I think I think that's a gimmick. Also, I think that's what the story is about. I think it's going to reveal that Tony's been faking this the whole time just to make Mariah unsuspecting, and then she'll reveal that she knew whatever and pay back. And I'm sure they'll end this story in a way where people be like, oh, this is cinema, this is genius, this is blah, this is, but I think, once again,
I'm very excited for like a month from now when they interact on TV for the first time. And it's going to be like, Mariah's going to be kind of feeling it out, like, oh, do you remember who I am? And Tony's it's going to seem like she doesn't. And yeah, it'll be good.
She's going to say something. Tony's going to say something about, I've heard about you from my friends in Stardom.
Yeah. Oh, the champ. Like the champion. Like, oh, so, doing the whole respectful rookie thing. Like,
yeah, she's going to do that. And I think that's, like I said, there's a great piece of business there with Mariah and Tony, but I just hate the fact that Mariah's best work from a feud perspective was coming from just this one feud, when the Mina thing had potential. I think that had potential, but it's also, Mina's not like officially All Elite, even though she like technically kind of is, but she's not officially. So I guess they couldn't go full bore with what they wanted to do, maybe. But I think on the flip side of that, although the stories suck for this particular woman, I think she is doing a fucking amazing job as champion, and that's Mercedes Moné. Keep her far away from promos most of the time. But
yeah, so let's get into it, man. I said it last night. I know you didn't. We haven't watched it yet, but universally, and I'm sure you saw it online. That match with Stat was fucking phenomenal. So my wrestler of the year is Swerve. It was basically impossible to overcome that, just because, when we talk about these matches that Mercedes had, we're talking about match of the year. To me, we're talking about match of the year. To me, the matches with Swerve were all time, like any year ever. That match with Danielson and that cage match with Hangman. So you pretty much impossible to beat that. But I was talking about it last night. Mercedes not only this year has really not had the dentist, but what can you do?
we forgot really
not had a bad match and has had multiple match of the year contenders.
Yeah.
In any other year would be right up there. Like I said, it's tough to beat those two Swerve matches, but one of the most consistent wrestlers in the year. And I think at this point, between this year that she's had in the series of matches with Bayley back in 14, 15, 16, we got to start talking about Mercedes Moné as far as all time in North American women's wrestling, at least, if not at large, as one of the greatest of all time. And I'd hear arguments as the greatest of all time, because to me, that match with Bayley in Brooklyn, the first one, that is one of the greatest matches of all time.
Absolutely.
The Iron Lady match that they had to follow up with that, one of the greatest women's matches of all time, one of the greatest matches of all time. This year that she's just had, extremely consistent, like 3 or 4 matches that you could put up as match of the year. We got to start talking about this stuff in a all time set, and that's not even going into the history that she's made. The match with Bianca Belair, being the first the main event of WrestleMania, things like that where she's made history.
And that was a really good match too. So
I said it was a good match. I don't know, but I don't know if I'd put it in a great category, but it was very good. And I think situations like that are tough when it's it feels more like a coronation than it does a match. Like, I don't think anybody had any doubts that Bianca Belair was winning that match. So that's what made it tough for me to put into like a greatness category. But it was very, very, very good.
It's funny you say that, because that's how I feel about Kofi Mania and Danielson and Kofi. Like, people have said it's the greatest match, some of the greatest title match in WrestleMania. I don't hold it as high as some people do, but the moment itself was so special that the match is elevated because of it. So
you trusted WWE to do the right thing on that one.
I did, but I have
than me.
I had intel. I had intel on that one, so
okay.
I was there that whole weekend.
Well, then you did that to yourself, then. Anyways, Mercedes Moné, right up there, wrestler of the year, and we got to start talking about her in an all-time perspective.
She's always been my GOAT.
Okay, there you go.
She's always been, and the reason why is just because I don't think she ever got to fully get to show her true powers as a performer in WWE, because WWE in the Vince era would absolutely try to handicap some of their great performers. And despite her having those, I mean, we're talking about the Bayley matches, that's NXT, right? Like, that's NXT. Yeah. So it's Triple H's baby. Whereas, I think she had some great matches with Charlotte, Becky Lynch, couple others. I think she actually gave Ronda Rousey a pretty decent match too, if I'm not mistaken. So she's always been, and to me, she was always going to be my GOAT for multiple reasons. But when she got to AEW, I was concerned, and I thought she did well too against, the women she went against that 6-month period where she was doing New Japan, that type of stuff. I thought she was doing really good work then, but she obviously was a little rusty starting out. And since she's got to AEW, she really hasn't missed. I just think the one area that she's always needed work on was promos, and that's still hasn't changed. But in ring wise, as far as the United States, North America, whatever, as far as that goes, she's been my GOAT for a while. And I was never on the Charlotte train. I saw a lot of people say she's the GOAT. Never on the Charlotte train. I think Charlotte's talented, but she was never my GOAT. Becky Lynch, I hear a lot of people say that for the United, even though she's not from the United States. But I've heard people say that. Character-wise, I guess being a star, she's probably had some of the highest heights we've seen headlining a WrestleMania. So yeah. I get that. But for me, Mercedes was always just, I think because I saw her rise up with being the goofy Sasha's Ratchet gimmick that they used to throw at her in NXT and that bullshit. So like, I saw her rise up from that. So I guess for me, that's what it is. Just I saw her rise up from that, and I think she's just, 13 12, 13 years later, she's at the top, still at the top of her game. She's only gotten better, and she's still trying to improve, and still like. And big shout out to Chris Statlander, who has been through some very odd.
We're going to that next. We're going to that
changes.
next because she's right on the heels. I did want to bring up though. Did you say I can't remember because we've had so many of these that we've talked about. Were you there at Brooklyn?
For NXT?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't in Brooklyn for that one. No,
because I fucking was, and you can actually see me on camera a couple times during the match, during the celebration. And man, during it's impossible to describe unless you were there. But I'm not even joking. For like the last 8 minutes of that match, it felt like wrestling was real. Like it was fucking. There was a period of time. And maybe it's cooled off just a bit, but I called that the greatest wrestling match of all time for like a while because it was just. I've been to a lot of wrestling shows. I've watched a lot of fucking wrestling, and that was just. It was fucking incredible, fucking incredible. Stat was the person I was going to follow up with. As far as like sleepers of worst wrestlers of the year. Because she too, before you look at it and it doesn't really pop in your head immediately, but when you stand back and look at it, she was in 3 match of the year's contenders as well. Because so much has happened with these 2 Mercedes matches that are all-time fucking classics. We forget. I think my favorite match of the year was her fucking street fight with Willow at All Out.
Absolutely.
That shit was crazy. That was a fucking incredible match. Stat. Extremely consistent all year. Fantastic fucking performances. They have found, I knew it right off the bat, and then it went the exact way that I thought. They have found the perfect dance partner. The 2 of them, Stat and Mercedes, are the perfect dance partners. They can make this motherfucker 4 out of 7 for all I fucking care. They found the perfect match for her. The matches, the series with Willow was fucking fantastic. That Chicago Streetwear was fucking fantastic. Chris Statlander, absolutely. If we were doing this like a Heisman ceremony, we had the top 5, we invited the top 5 wrestlers of the year. Swerve would be my guy, Mercedes, and then I think Chris Statlander would deserve an invite as well.
Well, you mentioned Stat in some of her matches. I also want to give a major shout out to the other dance partner in one of her great matches, Willow Nightingale, who also had some good matches with Mercedes. Good match with Mercedes.
Not getting an opportunity to show us that anymore for some reason, but yes,
yeah. Willow Nightingale is amazing in so many ways, and I think she is super talented. And I wish maybe the company would kind of realize what they have with her too, because. Yeah, but there's an issue there too with marketing their potential stars the right way. We've talked about that ad nauseum at this point. So I think Willow, for me, in terms of the women this year that I've watched, the 3 women that stand out to me the most were Mercedes, Stat, and Willow, and that's just from an in-ring perspective. It's interesting though, because I'm looking at the WWE and like they have some great women, but I don't know if there's like a women's wrestler that pops out to me instantly as like a true standout. The only person that I've been impressed by and I'm enjoying watching is Tiffany Stratton. Like that's the only one that has really grabbed me. Nia Jax has improved tremendously. Also, Chelsea Green. Shout the
fuck out! So happy, man. U.S. title. That was so fucking dope.
And that
Chelsea Green is the fucking best.
Yeah, that pop she got was in fucking insane
and deserved.
Yeah, well deserved. And also another AEW woman that is Harley Cameron is becoming a favorite for me. She is
fantastic,
ridiculous.
Man. Fantastic. Harley Cameron is the fucking queen of the country. Absolutely. She's fucking good at everything. She's worked her ass off. She is fucking incredible.
Man, it's just amazing because I remember when she was who she was before she became Harley Cameron, and you didn't get to see like you. I saw some like her music stuff, and I was like, what is this? And then you start to see like she is literally a character, top to bottom, just a character, and that's something that's missing from wrestling too. To me, is someone who can tap into characters and be ridiculous and be silly. And I think both Chelsea Green and Harley Cameron can both tap into that, and they're both talented in their own right. But it's just having people that can tap into that side of themselves and make you laugh or entertain you that well.
Yeah,
that's missing from this art form.
Yes, I think that us being, children of the 80s and having some roots in the early those days, as far as wrestling goes, I think we notice it more. Is that so many people, especially heels, like nobody shows ass anymore. And like if you are willing to and like embrace it, like it's so fucking good and it stands out so much. And Harley Cameron and Chelsea Green are two heels that are willing to show ass. Like when the fucking I don't mean that like photo shoots. I mean as in that's a wrestling term, as in like you're willing to look fucking funny or look fucking stupid when you feed comebacks, or like when things happen to you, you're willing to get into like embarrassing situations that are like funny and like fun, that mix in with the violence. And that used to be such like a point of pride. Like one of the best people at it used to be like Terry Funk. If you watch old Terry Funk matches, like he's looking like a fucking fool, like all over the place that he's selling and stuff. It's a classic match I talk about all the time. I actually talked about it with a couple of wrestlers on online the other day. The Terry Funk match on Saturday's Main Event with Hulk Hogan is like such a great fucking example of like how to be effective heel, how to be dastardly, how to show ass like properly and like make it entertaining and like people have a fucking blast watching it, but you're still like this evil, dangerous fucking person. Like, and Harley Cameron, not as much because she's not as experienced, but like Harley Cameron and Chelsea Green are like the two best at it right now. Which leads me another thing I suggested last night, just because I love that kind of heel work. I'm like, man, if Ricochet was really about it, if he was really about it, he should grow in the Clyde Drexler cul-de-sac hair and like complain about people pulling his hair and like just do funny shit like that. Like he should really like embrace. And then because everybody, that's like the whole thing, right? Like the crowd chants, "Oh, you're bald," and he got slapped on his bald head, and stuff like that. But like he should grow it in and like make it like this point of, you know what I'm saying? Like wrestlers have done shit like that for like the longest. You remember when Kurt Angle used to do it about his hair, and it'd be fucking fantastic. But
Kurt Angle is probably one of the most comedic wrestlers of our
Kurt Angle. That's another perfect example. Like Kurt Angle used to show ass and look like a fool all the fucking time, and he was a fucking Olympic gold medalist. Like,
and I know people hated
where
it.
The place was,
and I know some people hated it, but I think that Kurt Angle and Stone Cold Steve Austin tandem during the invasion was phenomenal, the funniest shit ever, because Austin was so like serious rattlesnake badass that him playing that fucking guitar or him standing next to the Undertaker while they're like, talking about invasion and they're breathing down our necks and like just those moments to be able to do that. It shows that you're a great actor, one, because this acting. You're doing improv. A lot of wrestling is just improv acting, really. So to see Kurt Angle and Austin's and those guys go out there and do it, these are two of the greatest to ever do it. No one's above that. And I think in professional wrestling, the reason why the two people that are exhibiting that the most are these two phenomenal women is because, I hate to say it, some of the guys take themselves just a little too serious.
A lot of them take themselves way too serious,
and it's just like this goes
back to the Revenge of the Nerds stuff we talk about.
Yeah. So trust me, there's
people who get into wrestling right now ain't the same people that got into wrestling back then.
And
it was one of the tough days of my life when I started to figure out that a lot of these people are like much less cool than I am. That's fine. That was a tough realization.
I said this, and I meant it. I was watching Love Don't Cost a Thing last night. just because Tubi has all these amazing black movies that I grew up watching, and I watched it, and it just dawned on me like a lot of people in wrestling, whether they're the performers or the fans, they are Nick Cannon trying to be cool, trying to be down, trying to be this, trying to be that, and there's a lot of that going around. And I think the wrestlers don't realize like you're not cool, like you're not cool. You don't have to be something you're not. Not everybody is meant to be just this or be cool or be this or be that. And I think once we come to a point where we're comfortable acknowledging who we are and what we do and what we're not, I think we'll be at a much better place for wrestling fans. I think there are and I'll touch on this very, very quick. I think there's a group of wrestling fans or people that consider themselves wrestling aficionados, if you will, that allow wrestling to make them feel like they're cooler than what they are, and then they use it, in a very divisive way, and it does not help the business. It doesn't help the wrestling quote unquote community. It just there's a lot of bullshit from people who are not what they really think they are, or they're trying to force themselves to be. And I just wish that wrestling fans would just enjoy the shows, talk about what we don't enjoy, and leave it at that. There's a lot of people who do this revenge of the nerd shit to where you think you're a badass because you get online and you talk crazy to somebody that's like 500 miles away that don't know what you look like because you're hiding behind some wrestler's picture. It's just goofy shit. And if people were just less serious about something that is really not that serious, this is great entertainment. Wrestling is great entertainment. I think we need to realize that entertainment is what it is. It's entertainment. I also briefly want to say that I agree with you. We have the same wrestler of the year. Swerve is my wrestler of the year as well. I separated mine in terms of like divisions. So for like the men's wrestler of the year, I gave it to Swerve. Women's wrestler, I gave it to Mercedes because they're so they don't intersect with each other really. So I separated that way. To me, Swerve and Mercedes, the MVPs of AEW's 2024. And on the flip side of this, the worst person in AEW this year, I gave it to the boss, Tony Khan. I gave it to the boss because it was he who made the decision to air the footage of CM Punk beating up Jack Perry. It was he who made the decision to put himself in the line of fire and get pile drive by the Young Bucks and beat up by Jack Perry. It was he who put that bullshit ass Elite taking over NWO fake story, the Nerd World Order coming together to take out AW and do it. So I think Tony Khan has been the problem in AW. So he would be my end of the year, donkey of the year. I don't know, ass of the year. I don't even know what you want to call it, but I think Tony has been ridiculous. And just watching some of that scrum that I saw and seeing his reaction to people seeing the negativity against the company, it's been very difficult and blah blah blah. And his reaction is like, yeah, I know, like you're a fucking billionaire, dude. You just signed a huge deal to stay with Warner Brothers and all that stuff. Like, quit the victim shit and the woe is me shit. You just signed a fucking like $900 million deal, not quite a billion, but I think it's like a $900 million deal, 750, 900 million, something like that. But yeah, I think he's been the worst part of AEW this year because we've seen him way too much, talking way too much, and even he's not saying anything. But Swerve and Mercedes, absolutely top two this year. I don't have anything positive to say about really anybody else at the top of their game. I think there's been a lot of unevenness in AEW, so I haven't been able to invest in any of the other wrestlers like that. I think Kyle Fletcher could be a breakthrough star of the year for the company. I think that there's a chance for Kyle Fletcher to become that guy breakthrough wise. I know he had a good match with Ospreay last night.
Oh yeah.
And Kenny Omega came back. I also saw that. I wonder if Kenny Omega wants that award for next year. Rest of the year.
Hey.
Damn sure. He damn sure. I mean, the eventual Swerve and Omega match. Like, are we? I would really want to get. I really want to get to that. I think that's the match for me. That's my match that I'm waiting on. Is Swerve and Omega. I
Yeah,
know the Okada and Omega thing.
standard bearer against the new standard bearer. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the Okada Omega thing. They're trying to revisit that. That doesn't entice me as much. Personally, just not like I saw it when they were much younger and arguably a lot better. And I watched every match that they had, and I thought it was phenomenal. And I just you don't have to just recreate. I know they're gonna have probably just one match and try to recreate it at All In, which is cool because they were probably trying to plan to do that like this past year. That was, I think, what they were thinking about trying to do. But I could do without another Okada and Omega match. There's a lot of other wrestlers I'd like to see him go against. I'd like to see this new version of Kyle Fletcher against Omega. I'd like to see.
Hell yeah.
I even like to see Ricochet go in there with Omega and mix it up with this weird Andrew Tate-ish heel gimmick.
Yes, grow in the hair. Grow in the hair. What's your match of the year?
Personally, Punk versus Drew Hell in a Cell is my favorite
Okay.
of the year. Number 2 for me, or 1B, is Swerve and Danielson at All In. That's my number 2. I had like a top 5 in mind, or top 5 in mind. It's like Punk Drew, Swerve Danielson, Danielson versus Ospreay, Mercedes versus Stat. I haven't seen the second one, so I'm just gonna say the first.
It's better whenever you get a chance and check it out.
So, and number 5 was the tie between Swerve and Ospreay and Cody and Roman. So that was those are my top 5. I think Punk and Drew does it for me because it was the culmination of the best feud of the year. The best WWE feud of the year for sure. So I think it also it gave us the intensity that the SummerSlam match was missing.
Big time,
and I think they had the bells at Bash at Berlin. They had the strap match, and that was a really good match too.
Yeah,
but
that was good shit. Yeah,
it was like, if you're gonna end a feud, this is how you do it. This is what Hell in a Cell is supposed to be used for. That's what it is. So I appreciate the essence of what this is being recaptured by Punk and Drew. They did a phenomenal job, the whole feud, and it's just every little touch. It's
hilarious
the thing.
CM Punk is probably WWE's Wrestler of the Year.
Honestly, with even though he hadn't had many matches,
it's either him or Braun Breaker for me.
Yeah, I mean, Punk was active. He wasn't even healthy. He was on the show more than Roman was. Like Roman was like, I'm out for 6 months, and Punk would show up, have a great promo segment, and do all other stuff. And even now, Punk is doing great work with Seth, heading into this Netflix premiere, which that should be
going to be cooking.
Yeah.
Mine was, Swerve Danielson. I've talked a bunch about it. I think that's an all-time great match.
Yeah.
This is my match of the year. My favorite match of the year is Stat and Willow in the fucking Chicago Street Fight. Goddamn tremendous. That was such a fucking blast.
Yeah.
Which moves on to the next category. I think it's pretty damn tough to argue that All Out was the show of the year for wrestling. You had that match. You had one of the greatest steel cage matches of all time, closing out one of the greatest feuds of all time on top. And then you had a fucking bonkers Pac Will Ospreay match that was during that show as well. I can't think of much of anything that tops it, man. Show of the year in your mind.
Tough for me because I didn't watch an extremely large amount of wrestling that caught my eye this year in terms of shows. I did enjoy All Out. and I might be partial for AEW. I'd say All Out for sure. WWE show of the year to me is still WrestleMania 40. Me being there make me a little biased, but I thoroughly enjoy WrestleMania 40, especially the second night. Although I wasn't, like the second night, but I thought night one had a lot of exciting moments. Night two, so it's to me it's a flip a coin thing because All Out had everything that you want in terms of wrestling and matches and I don't think AEW hit a higher height than All Out from a match perspective overall. I think All In had obviously one of the greatest matches ever with Swerve and Danielson, but I can't pinpoint a show. Maybe I thought Dynasty had some really good matches too. Was it AEW Dynasty? I thought they had some really good matches. But yeah, I can't pinpoint another show that I think was better from AEW or WWE. So I'd say my top two shows of the year. I'd probably edge it to All Out, but WrestleMania 40 to me was. I thought it was a great. I thought it was a great WrestleMania, all things considered.
Great couple of days of wrestling. We here on DAR Sports Media have days and days and days, great couples of days of content for you anywhere that you want to look for it. We got this YouTube page, obviously. Still trying to get those numbers up, so please subscribe so you get the stuff early. Sub and share us. The Medium site going crazy as always. We have a crew of fantastic writers that can eat up your time whenever you got very digestible, not War and Peace length stuff, but the quality is 10 of 10 throughout. We got the music game, of course, on lock. Soul Revival 6 is on every streaming platform that you can think of right now. Music, content, the writing game, in person as well. True, tell them about it a little bit.
Yeah. So it's been a busy last 8 days for me. Doing media for the Cincinnati Bearcats versus Grambling State. They are, I believe, the currently 17th ranked team in the nation. Also did some little bit of work at the Cincinnati Cyclones minor league hockey game, and we are currently in the process of trying to make things happen for the Cincinnati versus Arizona Wildcats game on January 4th. And not just me by myself. My brother Apollo might be there with me. He's planning on possibly coming up here, and we definitely gonna have some fun in the city if that happens for sure. But yeah, we are everywhere. We're also currently working on some potential in the springtime baseball. Cincinnati Reds here for me, Baltimore Orioles. I got some Philadelphia Phillies people also as well. We're just trying to be wherever we can be. Maybe, just maybe you'll see us do some wrestling media work as well in terms of being in person and a couple events and couple shows. And the independent wrestling game is still very much a relevant one right now. So may see us pop in at a few, might see a few legends pop up on here at some point in 2025. We'll say it's very, very, very busy time for a lot of people. So it's always about getting the schedules right. And yeah, I think that's about it. Might also see some different content from us. But make sure for sure you check out the YouTube because we have more than just the pods. We got some videos coming, some shorts coming,
Yeah,
just
some
expanding the
shorts,
content, giving you sports content, wrestling content, music, movies, culture. There may be a couple of articles on something. This is different for us because it's not sports, not really media either, but some mental health psychology things as well. There's some
There you
articles
go.
coming, and for family relationships and health and stuff like that. We are trying to give you guys content that not only is enjoyable, entertaining, but that we can all learn from and all take something from, something with substance. Give the people substance, not just a bunch of bullshit over and over and over and over again. We're trying to unite people in a real way and try to help people in a real way, because that is what we are here to do. DAR stands for define a revolution. Be clear. Can't define a revolution doing a whole bunch of bullshit and a bunch of sneaky bullshit. So we walking like we talking. That's all it is, man. We here.
Walking like we talking. No sneaky bullshit. All categories that you can think of to enrich you. Written, audio, video soon. In person, maybe even. And that is because the world of DAR never stops.